Now that you've learned about fractions that are equivalent to 1/2, we can look at our fraction bars and see other fractions that are equivalent. So for example, I can see that 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6. It's the same amount. I can see that 3/4 is equivalent to 6/8. And here's another example. 4/6 is equivalent to 8/12. The purpose of the practice pages today is to look at different models and find equivalent fractions. So if you notice, they have shaded in 1/4, and then over here, the size of the pieces changed. We're now looking at 12ths. And if you color in this same amount, this is 3/12. So we can say that 1/4 equals 3/12. Those are equivalent fractions. Let's work on a couple more. 4/6. I'll go ahead and shade in that same amount. What fraction amount is shaded in? 2/3. If you just want to write your answer above the problems, that's totally fine. All right, now number 2 is a little tricky because it's 0/2. So there's nothing shaded in because there's 0 pieces. So over here, we don't want to shade in anything either. We're going to keep the numerator as 0. There are 6ths, so this is 0/6. Looking at number 3, we have 4/4, which is the whole circle. So I will shade in the whole circle. So we have the size of the piece, our halves, and we have 2 of those pieces. So number 3 is 2/2. 4/4 is equivalent to 2/2. They're both equal to 1 whole. Looking at number 4, we have 6/8. Go ahead and shade in the same amount. This picture shows 3/4. So 6/8 is equivalent to 3/4. The next 2 pages are number lines. This is also a great model that can help us find equivalent fractions. Question number 1 says, using the number line shown, what is the equivalent fraction to 8/8? And I can see that this first number line is divided into 8 pieces. So I also know that 8/8 equals a whole. So if I look at this number line, I can see that it's divided into 2 pieces. I'm looking for this point. So this would be 2/2. Using the number line shown, what is the equivalent fraction to 2/3? So here's 1/3, 2/3. So if I drop down, here's my point. And let's figure out where this point is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this point is at 4/6. So 2/3 is equivalent to 4/6. Number 3, using the number line shown, what is the fraction equivalent to 2/8? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 should be right here. 2/8 is this point. So I'm looking for this point. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. This point is at 1/4. So 2/8 is equivalent to 1/4. And the last page of your packet is a matching activity. Instructions say determine which letter best represents an equivalent fraction. So you're going to look at like number 1, and then you're going to look down here and try to find an amount that looks like it's colored exactly the same. If you look at letter A, that actually looks very close to the same. Let's just look through and see. This is much too small, too small. That's almost all shaded in, but it looks like there's more shaded in than there would be up here. There's not very many pieces shaded in here. It might be helpful to look at the size of the piece that's not shaded in. So for example, this piece is a smaller piece than this piece, so that wouldn't be equivalent. Not enough shaded in, not enough shaded in, not enough shaded in. There's more shaded in here, but still not as much as number 1. Now looking at letter K, that looks really, really close. You might have to think about, is 4/5 equivalent to 5/6? And if you look at the piece that's not shaded in and compare those two pieces, you can see that this is just a little bit smaller. This one is not equivalent. And then going over to letter L, this also looks very close. If you look at these two pieces, that amount is a little bit bigger than the amount on number 1. So I think we're going to stick with A as our answer. Let's look at number 2, 6/16. I can see that less than half is shaded in. So that's something that could help me down here. This is less than half, but it's not shaded in enough. Not enough. Still not enough. Now that looks very close. Let's keep that in mind. That also looks pretty close. Too much is shaded in there, too much and too much. So it comes down to G and H. I think I'm going to look at the pieces that are not shaded in, and those look to be about the same amount. That's a little bit bigger. So visually, I can tell that 3/8 is equivalent to 6/16. Have fun with this last page. Don't get too frustrated. Skip around, find the easy ones first, and then you can check your work with the answer key.